The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our ServiceNow series, where we interview the best and brightest of the industry to share their story, advice, and views on the exciting world of ServiceNow and digital transformation.
You're listening to the Alldus podcast, ServiceNow series. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Paul Handley. Paul is the Chief Technology Officer of the Professional Services Business Unit at Chenega. Paul, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, JP, how are you?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. Delighted to have you on, finally. I know we've been talking about doing this for quite a while, so we've got you here. So lots to cover, but Paul, let's start with yourself, please, as we do with all of our guests. Could you give us a little bit of background of your journey in technology, from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as CTO for the ProServe Strategic Business Unit for Chenega?
Looking back at my career, I've been in federal contracting and federal service since 1989 until June of 1999, working as an employee of the National Park Service. And started out like many young people, wanted to be a ranger. I had come out of university with a degree in archaeology, was interested in that. And before I knew it, I was driving the elevator up and down the Washington Monument, working the night shift. So all of my friends from college would show up at the Washington Monument and see me there in my park ranger uniform, where I would recite my interpretive assessment of what it meant to go up and down the Washington Monument and how important that was.
Nice. Quite the start, and considering where you've landed now. So what were some of the segues? Because it's certainly non-traditional.
Before long, they realized that I wasn't really elevator driving material. And so I moved into the headquarters of the local national park office. And at the time, one of my duties was issuing parking passes to VIPs, basically, who wanted to park down on the National Mall and areas just south of Capitol Hill. And it was an arduous process, and I was sitting there in front of a computer. So I dusted off my programming skills that I learned in college and automated the parking permit printing process and got rehooked on computers at that point. And just about that time, the Park Service had invested in GIS computers, big Sun Spark stations, and no one knew really what they were for. They were just sitting in the office when I arrived. And I very quickly had moved into another division in the horticultural division of the National Capital Parks, and was working for a terrific person. I had one of the things that I have to say is that I had a lot of terrific mentors along the way, not only in the Park Service, but subsequent to that. And at that point, my mentor was like, go ahead, if just as long as you don't break it, you can turn the computer on and see what you can do. And before long, I was the Geographic Information Systems coordinator for the park and never looked back. Became the regional coordinator, lots of conferences and on-the-job training, and then just grew it from there. And then the web came around. So this is like 1996. The web was still gray screens and animated GIFs. And as a Park Service employee, I was like, you know what? The world needs to see the national parks on the web. So there was a few of us that got started putting parks up on park brochures, basically up on the web. And that got the notice of the director of the Park Service, who called me into his office and said, how would you like to turn this into a real thing? And so very quickly, I became the head of the National Park Service's web project called ParkNet at the time, and put together a gang of pirates and thieves and We built an early content management system so that the authors back then it was 390 some odd parks, could all contribute and really add their own color and local story to a national publication that was quickly being consumed by a global audience. So, ParkNet was a great success. This was 1997. And then in 1998, I was approached by some folks out of the Department of Interior who had this idea of putting together something similar as to what I did for the Park Service, but for a bunch of agencies. And we together created recreation.gov, which is still quite anybody who does outdoor recreation uses recreation.gov to this day. And basically with the culmination of that, I knew I had to get out of the government. I was 30. I was looking at another 20 years in the same office. I had graded myself out of going out into the field. So I quickly left, joined forces with a couple of guys, and formed Eventcentric, which was a conference planning software platform. And then at the same time, the two other principals and I formed a government contracting firm called DIT. And before I knew it, I was working in DISA in a cube, doing map interfaces for a global combat support system. So
that's a cool path. Go from national parks to geospatial technologies for the defense sector, which using a lot of what you've learned, but in a very different format. You were obviously had some success there, and which led you then into some more senior positions. So talk to us about the path towards just before you joined Chenega, because I know there were some fairly sizable companies involved as well.
Yeah, so along the way, it's all about innovation. Right. So if you take a look somewhere in there, I went to graduate school to learn how to manage information technology. And part of that master's program was courses on innovation. And I realized that innovation was one of those things I was really good at. And innovation is really about introducing disruptive technologies and then doing all the things around that introduction of a disruptive technology to help it take root, and then working on culture and capacity building within the organization so that you can optimize what you've gained from that innovation. So that it's really a beneficial loop, and you cycle through that over and over again. And it turned out that's really what I had been doing in every job I had ever had. And so, I parlayed that into working for Tata. We were introducing firewalls and clean pipe around the world, just a series of other companies. And gradually it dawned on me, and it wasn't really all that gradual, but pretty quickly it dawned on me that the role that I was looking for was the chief technology officer role. That's how I ended up there, from driving the elevator up the Washington Monument to being the CTO.
Love it. Quite the journey. And getting that CTO role is what helped you ultimately land where you are currently. So a lot to cover here. Before we jump into the ServiceNow specific stuff, tell us about Chenega as a business. Give us the overview of who you are, what you do, mission of the business. And I know there's different business units, so a little bit on that, and then we can jump into the cool work that you guys are doing with ServiceNow.
So Chenega, it starts with the Chenega people, right? So we're an Alaskan Native village corporation. We're the largest Alaskan Native village corporation. And the Chenega people are a tribe that lives in Prince William Sound. And Chenega itself, as an ongoing business, has four main units in the government sector. We have the military and intelligence unit. We have the environmental health and facilities unit. And then we have our security unit. And then the unit I represent is our professional services, which is the youngest and smallest group, and may not surprise you, we're the folks that are generating a lot of new innovations in the federal space.
Doesn't surprise me at all. I know it's something that you and I have talked about previously. So Look, your role covers a broad range of responsibilities, and I feel like on a different day we could do a different episode more geared towards our AI in Action series. But for the purpose of ServiceNow, can you give us some insight into the work you and your team are doing with your various customers in the public sector, how you're helping them benefit from ServiceNow and its capabilities in automating processes, and just help us understand what it's like to be part of the ServiceNow group within your particular strategic services business unit?
It's not a surprise that ServiceNow is growing dramatically in the federal space. A long while back, we had Vivek Kundra came forward and with his cloud-first ideas. The government's been on a long path towards realizing some of the ideas he introduced to us more than a decade ago. And part of that is adopting these platforms that can help the men and women that are chasing the mission at these various agencies optimize what it is that they do. And if you think about it and you look at ServiceNow's mission itself, it aligns very well with what we're trying to do in government, right? We're trying to help the citizenry, and we're trying to optimize the way we do business. We're trying to do a better job helping the employees who are trying to chase that mission. And ServiceNow is integral in each one of those areas. And so it's pretty exciting to have come from the government and then come back and help people who I understand how their motivation is adopt a platform like this that kind of clears away the noise of the custom government developed apps or the COTS products that are one-off that have come before. And it clears away a lot of that tech debt that is just, it spreads so widely throughout the federal government and probably every large organization you can think of. How do we do it? Or I could talk about it in lots of different ways, but what I'm interested in is that connection between people, right? Between the folks that I bring on for Chenega to help our federal customers. They need to be a good match for the customers within the federal space because it's a unique challenge, right? It's constantly being asked to do more with less. Very few people have the ability to make the buying decision. So many of the people that you encounter in this space don't feel empowered to say yes to anything. And also along the way, there's tons of people who can say no, who aren't really invested in what it is that you're doing. And ServiceNow is a tremendous platform for us in that regard because it breaks down those barriers. You're not reinventing the wheel every time you deploy ServiceNow. You're helping the customer understand what are some of the best practices, what are the things that we've learned already, how can we optimize what it is that you're doing, and then teach and coach culture change around that so that they can meet their mission. You and I were talking about our current largest customer in the ServiceNow practice. We went from the idea, it was January 1st, and we went from that idea to 6 months later having an ATO and 4 modules deployed into production. And that you could never do that with a different platform.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
We obviously create a lot of content for the ServiceNow community, and one of the things we're trying to put the spotlight on is the tremendous opportunity for ServiceNow professionals that exists within the public sector government space, because for the reasons you mentioned, it's ripe for disruption. It needs to catch up, and ServiceNow is leading the way with giving organizations of all shapes and sizes the opportunity to advance their capabilities and automate a lot of processes. So I'm so glad that you touched on it. One of the other things that has always stood out whenever you and I talk or we speak to different groups within Chenega is the working environment and the culture. And I know culture is talked about a lot, and people want to showcase it. But there's a real impression and there's a real feedback from everyone who's involved in Chenega at any level that it's an incredibly fun and enjoyable place to work, in no small part due to leaders like yourself, but we'll park that for another day. But I do want to get your take on that, because it very much stands out to us here at Alldus, the environment at Chenega, the feedback from the people. So I want to get your take on why that is. What's your view on it, what you do to contribute to it, and what you would tell potential future Chenega employees about the environment.
You got me thinking about it when we were talking about it earlier, and I was just trying to figure out, and I got to believe that it comes from the elders. The board of directors, they're all members of the Chenega tribe. They came down to Virginia this past year and shared their vision for where the corporation's going, how we can play a part. And we have this saying, as many companies do, right? Extraordinary people, exceptional performance. I'm certainly not extraordinary, but I got the feeling from our leadership that exceptional performance is something that each and every one of them takes to heart. And it's interesting, not everyone's an Alaskan native, right? I'm not an Alaskan native. And in the senior leadership of professional services, where you look across the corporation, our tenure is way off the charts in terms of how long leadership is staying in the corporation. And I think that has something to do with it. People see a future within the organization. And there's something about the culture of being a double bottom line company where we're working to support a village, and the children and the men and women of the Chenega tribe benefit directly from what it is that we're doing. So maybe there's something there, but it's a fantastic place to work. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, there's definitely something there, because it's unlike many of the businesses out there. There's a cool backstory and it relates to something that people can get behind. But all of that wouldn't really matter if the people day to day were not good people to work with, which I can attest that they absolutely are. Which leads nicely into what I wanted to talk to you about next, which is looking ahead, the year ahead, particularly in your business unit where you're working on a lot of the more exciting and new stuff. Focusing on ServiceNow specifically, what are some of the things that you're excited to see come to fruition, whether it be expansion of the platform within existing customers or some potential proposals out there? Looking at the opportunity for ServiceNow, what are you hoping to accomplish in the next year, and what are you looking forward to?
There's a couple of things. I think that it's interesting to see the trend, right? So ServiceNow, we're coming at it from a service management perspective, right? Our heritage in this space is ITSM and understanding how to identify and predict issues that will affect your service delivery and combat them so that you can do it in a sustainable way. So that's all really core, right? So we're going to continue to see growth in ITAM and ITOM and all the things that are traditionally part of ITSM. But the thing that's really interesting is this drive towards customer centricity and understanding our customer. And so that's going to be big across all of our customers today, whether we start in security or in ITSM. We're branching out and thinking of employees within these federal branches as customers, much the same way our federal clients think of the American citizenry as their customers. And so we're approaching the ServiceNow deployments and implementations in those agencies with a customer-centric point of view. So that's one thing. And I think that's going to drive, you've mentioned AI, and you guys are leaders in the AI thinking and thought space. Generative AI is going to play a big role in how agencies use ServiceNow, not only chatbots, but predictive analytics, threat hunting. All those things are things that I see that we're going to be investing more time and energy in. We're also really interested in using that kind of technology to help our analysts, because not only are we implementers, but we've got folks sitting in front of the screen using ServiceNow as part of their day-to-day job. And predictive analytics, generative AI, those are all tools that are going to help the analysts do a better job addressing the issues, predicting them, maybe combating them before they begin, looking at those patterns that are hard for humans to see. Those are areas that we're really interested in.
Thank you for that, Paul. And obviously the AI topic is something that you and I intend on covering in a different episode for AI in action. But I want to finish on getting your take and I suppose a message to our ServiceNow audience as to why they should be looking towards the public sector for career advancement, because you and I speak about it frequently. It's a niche within a niche, but there's tremendous opportunity due to the various government agencies who need to bring their technology forward. So when you're speaking to potential candidates, and particularly those who are coming from maybe other industries and other sectors, what is it that you would tell them about why they should be looking here within this space for career advancement and career opportunities?
As my background shows, it's been storied, and I've done my fair share of time on my own. And many of the folks that I've interviewed through you guys and other channels in the ServiceNow space are really looking at this as a gig economy kind of thing. I'm going to move from one gig to the next. And that's okay, and that's great for a lot of people, but it can be exhausting. And I'm not sure you get the benefit of being at a place long enough so that you can understand all of the things that are affecting your ability to be a good ServiceNow developer, implementer, partner to your customer. And so I would want you to think about the federal space and Chenega in particular, because we don't think of you as just an implementer. We think of you as a member of the Chenega family, right? We're actually working hard to train folks, as I'm a big proponent of scaled agile. And to be a good member of an agile team is to be a cross-functional player, somebody with T-shaped skills, both wide and deep. And it's hard to get the deep skills if you're bouncing from gig to gig. And what we offer is a longer-term engagement where you can develop a broad set of skills across the federal landscape is quite diverse, right? Agencies are doing a whole host of different things. You can get both broad and deep experience working with us.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us today. We really appreciate it. As I said,
total
in the
pleasure.
Intro, we've been looking forward to doing this for quite some time now, and yeah, just glad to get your take on Chenega, the opportunity, your own journey, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that we can cover in the next episode for AI in Action, but also getting you back on the show again down the road for the ServiceNow series. Chenega, as I know from first-hand knowledge, is an incredible place to work. So people listening who are in the ServiceNow community, it's a great opportunity. So Paul, we wish you, the team, and everyone at Chenega the best of luck in the year ahead, and look forward to having you back on the show again in the near future.
Thanks again, JP.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.